Okay, hello! Welcome to this week's episode of the Esoteric Podcast OST Review.
Hello, everyone. This is T.J.Bunker. With me, of course, is Wesley, as we always do. This is our OST review, where we review video game soundtracks. For now. We might change that up to be something else later. We don't know yet. This show is still shaping up, but this is part of the Esoteric Podcast family of shows, we'll call it today. You can check us out in our main Esoteric Podcast on Twitch on Sundays, where we live stream. You can that usually takes about 2 hours. You can check us out right here on YouTube. We have our edited versions of those live podcasts, where we shorten them down to an hour, hour and a half, take out some of our more random tangents, clean things up a bit. And we occasionally do other random shows here on YouTube. I think the last one we did was for the announcement of the Nintendo Switch. Thought that was newsworthy, wanted to get our opinions out there on the net for any of our fans who are curious about what we felt about it.
Yeah.
You can find us on Twitter. We are at the Esoteric Pod on Twitter. We are not very good at Twitter. We're getting better. So far, all you'll find on Twitter is our when our shows go live, when they go up on YouTube. We are looking to expand to actually participate on Twitter. We'll do that someday, hopefully. We'll stop sucking. I don't know. There's long been discussion of a blog. I only have a few weeks left before my self-imposed deadline to start a blog. I'm a writer by trade, T.J. Bunker. I wrote a novel. So yeah, that's my favorite thing to do. I'm thinking about starting up a blog. Have my written opinions on things to go with all of our vocal opinions on things. And if you want to support us, you want to give us money, you want to help us out, we can get some cameras so you can see our faces. We can get some better microphones so we don't sound quite so poppy and terrible in these recordings. Maybe we can hire a graphic designer to redo our logo, because that is like an hour's worth of my time in Photoshop. It was not difficult to put together, and it shows. I am not a graphic designer, but I did what I could. But yeah, if you want to support us, give us some money so we can get better equipment. We can buy more games. We can buy more DVDs. Go to more movies in the theater. So we can continue to provide opinions, and maybe we'll branch out and do some other stuff. But you want to support us, you want to give us some cash so we can do all these things. You can find us over on Patreon. We're the Esoteric Podcast over on Patreon. You can find links to all of that in the video description or below the video description, or I don't remember where they show up on YouTube. But
below. In the video description below.
They are in the description. Okay. So yeah, you can find links to all of that stuff in the video description. Check it out. Support us. Look at our other things. So Wesley, what are we talking about today?
The OST for a game that we meant to talk about on our first podcast, but technical difficulties happened. The OST for...
I know what you're talking about. I spent an hour talking about that during our first podcast. You're the one who didn't stream it.
Yeah. We're talking about the game Read Only Memories, the OST for that.
All right. For those of you who do not know, Read Only Memories is a independently developed game by a small team of people. It's a RPG game. Point and click. Well, it's not RPG. It's point and click adventure game. Excuse me. Not RPG. A lot of conversation. A lot of cool stuff. It is set in the future, in the year 2064, I want to say.
Yeah, something right. Like that, yeah.
And yeah, we're talking about the soundtrack, Sounds of Neo SF, which is Neo San Francisco, the place where it is set. You can buy it on Steam for $5. I think you can buy it on the game developer's website. I don't know. There's places you can buy it. But yeah, the soundtrack is composed by a guy named 2 Mello. That's the number 2 followed by Mello. He's done some other video game things. I don't think he's actually part of the development team. I think he's an outside guy that these guys hired. Could be wrong about that.
I wouldn't doubt it, because a lot of video game composers do have their own career and contract to work out.
Well, depending. I mean, when you're talking AAA, no, those guys usually work for the company.
Well, yeah, those guys. But when it comes to the indie
But,
scene,
yeah, the indie scene, I would not at all be surprised if trying to support a full-time sound engineer, soundtrack developer, plus all the programmers and everything else might be a little expensive. So yeah, I could see those guys, the sound guys especially, spreading their work around. But so yeah, read-only memories, Sounds of Neo SF. A lot of techno, synthesized.
yeah, early techno is what I'd say most.
But I've got to say, having played the game Read Only Memories, it's a soundtrack that fits very well with the game. It complements the world in Read Only Memories. Kind of reminds me of a more 90s style take on the universe from Blade Runner.
All right, yeah, I can see that.
It's kind of got that futuristic mashup of cultures vibe from Blade Runner with a 90s, neon, funny clothes, skateboarder, hip hop kind of vibe. Just as 90s as it can be.
Yeah.
But in a good way. They didn't take all the dumb stuff from the 90s. They managed to cram that feeling together into a very coherent and very, very original-seeming world, and the soundtrack complements that very, very well.
Yes. It especially for the place, especially for the game's setting, with the whole futuristic techno-like and stuff, the soundtrack eloquently mixes in with that.
Elegantly.
Okay.
Yeah. Eloquently is about speech, and seeing as how there's only the one track with vocals.
Yeah, I see now.
But no, you're right. It does very elegantly fit in. It is wonderful. Like a lot of the best soundtracks we've reviewed, none of the music overpowers anything. It all adds to the gameplay. I once again played it in the background while I was browsing the web, doing some of my work at home. And it's got a nice little techno upbeat sound to it. None of the tracks are terribly long. I think like 2.5 minutes is about the longest they've got. Outside of the one with the vocals, which I believe played over the end credits, if I remember right.
Right, yeah.
And that one's like 5.5 minutes. But everything else is like 1.5 to 2.5 minutes tops. Short little songs. They're a lot of fun in the game, even though you might be in the same area for like 20 minutes, especially if you're terrible at the game.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously the song is just looping in the background. They all, none of them get annoying. Like I said, I played this while I was doing other work, and yeah, it was nice. Nice and fun to listen to. We had reviewed Super Mario Galaxy 2 soundtrack a couple episodes ago.
Yeah.
This is not as diverse as that. I mean, there are differences to the songs, and I'm sure if I sat down and listened to each of them, those differences would be a lot more apparent and a lot more memorable. But just listening to his background music, those I remember there being differences, and there were ups, downs, slow pieces, fast pieces, but in a much more narrow range than was that Super Mario Galaxy soundtrack.
Yeah. And,
to be fair, with the setting, I don't know what kind of range they could have really explored without it feeling weird. Like in Super Mario Galaxy, you were going to ice worlds, fire worlds, ice and fire worlds combined, because Super Mario Galaxy 2 was a weird game, which is weird places. Read Only Memories world was a lot more unified, a lot more based in reality, I guess we'll say.
Coherent.
A lot more coherent. There you go. That's a good word. So the soundtrack, I don't think, had as much room to be as diverse, just because they wanted it all to fit with their narrow, but not in a bad way, vision for things. They're well-defined vision for the game.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, and I especially enjoyed the soundtrack because it always added something. Like you were talking about earlier, it added to the gameplay, didn't detract. There's some games where I've played where the music will straight up just detract from the whole experience. I can't remember any off the top of my head, but I've played a couple. And this game has always added perfectly, in my consideration, to the atmosphere of what's going on.
Yeah. So, bottom line from me, I recommend the game first. First and foremost, play the game. It's not that expensive on Steam. It's a great game. Love it to death. And I would spring for the soundtrack. Great music to play in the background. Like I said, it's only $5. Play it while you're browsing the web. Play it while you're in the background while you're like playing board games with friends. If board games or card games are something you do. I could easily see this being something I play in the background for like a poker game. Load it up on an iPod or whatever. Put it on shuffle and repeat so it changes tracks and just plays it over and over again.
I'm just imagining us playing D&D with that in the background now.
Yeah. I don't think it would work well with our D&D group. Our D&D group usually would go better with like a Benny Hill soundtrack. But that's something about our D&D group, not the music. So, bottom line for the soundtrack, I highly recommend it. It's only $5. Go get it. Check out other soundtracks by the same artist. Check out other games by the same developer. Loved it. Think everybody should listen.
Yeah, my bottom line, it's an amazing soundtrack. Read Only Memories, the game, is one of the very few games where, like, I'll talk about how a game emotionally impacts me a lot, but this game actually made me cry at the end. Granted, I got the bad ending, so there's a little bit of leeway there, but it's a good game. Play it, listen to the soundtrack, and it's amazing. I suggest it.
All right. So that is our opinion on Read Only Memories, Sounds of Neo SF, the soundtrack to the game, Read Only Memories. This is brought to you by the Esoteric Podcast, as we said earlier. Check us out on YouTube. Check us out on Twitch. Check us out on Twitter. And if you like what we do, you want to support us, you want to help us bring more content to you in the future, go over to Patreon, support us on Patreon. We'd love to continue giving out this kind of stuff. Do more of it. Mm-hmm. So, with that, I've been T.J.Bunker. This is also Wesley, and we will talk to you later.
All right. Goodbye.